Mr. Clerk, it is 7:01. I am going to call this special meeting of Council to order. Council, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Councillor Gilliland, second by Councillor Thompson. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. Oh, Councillor Gallo.
Just as a note, while I realize this most likely will come back and it's not necessarily a final vote, straight to council, not a GC, no real second sober thought. I think just mentioning that perhaps it could have come to a GC and then go through that process. But although I do realize, I don't believe this is necessarily the last time we'll see this. So.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Call the vote. That carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. We have no delegations. We have two items. First item, Library Square project update and additional funds. And I believe Ms. McDougall is going to give us a presentation. Ms. McDougall, the floor is yours.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm once again very happy to be in front of council presenting our next step and phase of the Library Square project. It has been since July since we've been in front of council, except for a recent conversation regarding the Vale. Aside from that, the project has continued on through detailed design and being brought forward to council this evening. So the intent of tonight's report is to provide council with an overview of what has changed since you last saw the project in July, and also to seek, since we've completed the detailed design and we've also completed a cost estimate, it's important for council to know where we're at as far as the budget goes for this project and to provide you that update. Through this process, there's a ton of people behind me that throughout all of the processes have been involved in various stages or phases of the project, from our cultural partners to staff, consultants. So it's quite a team effort that we've pulled the information you're going to see before you tonight. So if you have questions, I know the consultant team is here, as well as I know through finance, they'll also have some support for you if you have additional questions. So just starting off, we're very excited that we've updated the images based on the feedback we have of for the project. This particular image, it looks similar, although it is updated with the new Vale height and new Vale bronze. The height, if you might remember, it was originally to the peaks of those rooftop units. And based on the feedback through our Heritage Committee and the Ontario Heritage Trust, that was brought down at a lower level. So this just has an updated image of that. This image also includes a slight, you can see the imagery on Victoria where the parking has been improved, which council also approved back in March to have some additional parking along Victoria. This image is taken from obviously a very aerial view of all of the new additional components, including the addition onto the Church Street School, the connection of the bridge, and also the rooftop pieces that have been added to the library, and also the improved outdoor square, which now resembles the winter trail that you'll see. And this trail, from the last rendering, actually looked like a whole ice pad. So this now has the trail that council approved. This also has some imagery of the parking improvements along Church Street, and also the large Christmas tree or tree that will be utilized for special events along Church Street, all lit up. We've just chosen to zoom in on this, although I apologize it's a little speckled, but just giving you an idea of a closer image of the outdoor trail as well, showing you slightly there. You can see the cantilever lights that'll be traversed over top of the outdoor square. Those lights, as approved, will be programmable to be colored. So we could color them depending on the season or event if we had a special event to recognize. This is the similar view, but in the summertime, looking at what the green roof of the addition. And part of the report tonight communicates through further assessment. Originally proposed was a green roof on the bridge, but through our assessment and details, it was determined that it would cost more. You wouldn't get the same return on the green roof, plus additional maintenance costs. Wasn't worth the investment. It wasn't providing enough of the water balance offsets that originally had anticipated. So it was actually a bit of a savings to take it off of the bridge. And that also includes, you can see the rooftop units as well being raised up as we now have the new corridor and program rooms in front of the library. This too just shows a closer up view. You see, you actually can see the water sprouts in the summertime, a little bit of a splash area, and that fountain area that will be also programmable depending on the activities. So they can be turned off. They could also be programmed to offshoot at different times. This you've seen before. It's the cafe. We just did a compilation of the whole project. These you've also seen before. Nothing's changed in these images. This just includes the main entrance off of Victoria and also the upper floor outside the crush space or outside the theater area, which includes the overlooking atrium visual over to the outdoor square. Part of the report tonight communicated through additional work. There was quite a bit of conversation as it related to the performance hall and from two factors, one being acoustics and the other being color scheme. With this hall and direction being asked of us to make it as versatile as possible to ensure it's met as many multi-purpose uses as possible right from simple banquet style through to vocal or symphony or orchestra type music to do the best we can acoustically. The report highlights, and thankfully to our acoustical engineer, Novus, that's attached, it demonstrates, based on the improvements we've made, each of those potential uses has been identified in a range of poor to excellent. And in all of those proposed uses demonstrates, based on the way we've designed this space, to all land in the good column. We are never going to be excellent in any one category, ultimately because it's not a purpose-built space. It's not purposely built to be a symphonic site or specifically for drama or specifically for speech. It's going to suit all of that at the best abilities that we can. The side panels, acoustic panels, also have soft goods that help temper that or change that ability to go from symphony or musical to speech and voice, or even to movie or film. And that's also what led us into the color scheme. Originally the color scheme, and it shows in the report, there was two images. One of the original image of color where there was a lot lighter looking space with a light hardwood floor, light walls, light ceiling, acoustic panels. That is a very common visual and a common scene space for symphony or orchestra. Not so common if you were to go into a movie theater or film or drama from a performance perspective. So the impression from our theatrical consultant was figuring that a darker space doesn't negatively impact the symphony use, but a lighter space would definitely impact negatively to our film and drama and theater space. So we chose to go with a darker palette, and ultimately that's what's resulted today. We've had some discussion regarding the flooring as well from a maintenance perspective, and therefore we have switched from a hardwood floor to a marmoleum flooring that's going to go throughout this space. A lot more durable, a lot more easy to maintain, and certainly from the color scheme we had some good options and variations that we could pick from. This color scheme went well, going along with the grays and color palettes that we've chosen for the rest of the space. To give it a bit of pop, the seating is red, to give it a bit of a color brightness within the space. The bridge, just an updated image of, we've gone from a slate tile to a porcelain stone tile or porcelain tile. Just shows a bit of variation in the color of the tile itself. In this bridge, we've also had improvements and changes as it relates to some of the value engineering from the brise soleil along the edge to changing the amount that we had, but the amount that we've changed does not change the sunshade requirements that we were hoping to maintain, which The level that we've gone to still does that. You'll see wood slats here on the rooftop. We've changed instead of it being wood slats, they've gone to an aluminum slat. That is going to keep that color tone of wood. And you'll see that tonight at break or after. Outside we have the color palette and samples of all of these pieces of material that we're speaking of tonight. So you can have a look and see what we're actually proposing. This just gives you an image of the dance studio. This is in the addition that's going on to 22 Church. It has the dance bars. It has the mirrored walls that can be covered up with curtains. It has the sprung floor, and the space itself is divisible, so it can be programmed into 2 usable spaces. The visual arts room similarly can be divided into 2. This space in 2 halves, both have kitchen counter and sink for cleaning up and maintenance. But we are still working in all these cases as it relates to the final finishes and color schemes. So what you see here isn't exactly the way it's going to land. We are still working those out in further detail. This is an updated visual of the front facade in front of the library. And also the corridor space updated with the slate and porcelain tile overlooking the garden. And then at the far end there, you can see the boardroom that was mentioned previously. And you can see it actually overlooking Yonge Street in the upper image as well. This is just an updated image of the library vestibule coming from the plaza towards the library, what was also approved to add as a new entrance area to the library from the court side. And the right-hand side multipurpose room, this refers to an example of one of those additional program rooms that is going on the upper floor or outside the corridor area of the library. And this is what I refer to as a sample panel. Can't really read that, it's too tiny, but that duplication is just outside in the lobby outside. So as far as the report goes, I think it does cover a number of items that from a high level. We have gone from a Class C estimate for the building and the square in March of last year. We brought council the Class D estimate of the bridge and the corridor in May and July. Those are all caught up now to a B estimate, but in doing so, when we did the B estimate, this is what resulted in the observation that we were over shortfall from the previous estimate council had approved. And we had some decisions to make as we anticipated coming to council today in December with a Class A estimate. That was our plan based on the work plan. And we determined and felt we wanted to have a look at what the shortfall was, what it was entailed, and we did our best to try to value engineer some of those items out. Not removing anything that was of an aesthetic or functional purpose, but something that was more about from the wood paneling to an aluminum that looks like wood. From a costing perspective, it enabled us to pull some of those costs back, and we were able to do so at a reduced overage by 3.3 million. Therefore, our ask today still lands around $2 million. The report speaks about what that $2 million lands on as far as what's the driver of it, but that gives you an idea today where we're at. Class B estimates tend to be a swing of about 10%, plus or minus 10% of a budget. The $2 million is only about 4%. So we're already well below what would be anticipated or expected of a Class B estimate. I think the important factor for us and our request today is the option before council. We have option A, which we're presenting here, where we're requesting consideration at this point. We know through the value engineering that we have some work can still be done, but we're going to start getting into value engineering major features or major functionalities. There will be some pieces that we can still do, but it's going to get down to smaller dollar amounts. It's not going to have as grand of an impact. Therefore, we feel that what we're presenting to you today is a conservative approach to how we value and engineered. We feel that the ask is appropriate for the level that we're at, based on a 4% of the actual cost estimate that we have to date. So with that, we're presenting to council today, if you approve the option we've presented of option A, and I can just point in the direction of where these is described for you. Page 9 of the report. If council approves the 2 million today, what we're suggesting is we will continue on and do the 90% cost estimate. If that is over, we'll be back to council to report that. But if it's within the approved estimate of today, including the $2 million, we could continue and proceed to produce the tender and issue the tender. Alternatively, the option B presented to council today is to defer a decision today until we do the Class A or 90%. It is staff's opinion that we are within 4% of the overall cost estimate to date. We are already what would be classified as within a Class A estimate, or 90% tends to be plus or minus 5%. So we're already within that expected range. And we feel that there's options for council, and we'll be back to council if there's some other elements that we need to consider your request or consideration for. So there's other options, other opportunities for us to be back before council. So with that, I think I'll leave it. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. McDougall. Council, if I can get someone who would like to move the recommendation, and then I can ask for questions or comments to the presentation or the report as well together. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Humphreys. So comments or questions to the presentation and to the report. Seeing none. Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. I'll start off, I guess. Just some questions regarding the value-added items. I note that we are removing the green roof on the bridge, and it speaks to the overall impact on water management. Will be fine, and I believe we'll be implementing porous pavement areas in the parking lot and the plaza, and doing various other things. On page 5, it mentions that. And then if you could just further down on page 9, it speaks to the value-adding items. One of the things we're removing is the permeable pavement, and it's a switch to asphalt. Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. McDougall.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you, and I appreciate the question. I've followed up with the consultants to make sure I interpreted what they had asked or clarified more clearly, so I understand it. I'm just going to recite them so I don't mix up the technical side. From a water balancing and switching from permeable pavers to asphalt. So therefore, the consultants are recommending porous asphalt, as it is less expensive with similar properties to the porous pavers from a water balance perspective. This change is being factored into stormwater management calculations. So it is a porous asphalt, porous paver.
Councillor?
Okay, so it's just a different type of, we're still achieving the same thing in terms of the material. Water is able to go through it. It's just a different type of
Correct.
material, asphalt, as opposed to some other type of pavers. Could you speak to, on page 9, option B, if we were to defer, it speaks to the delay of the project by 4 weeks. If we were to, let's say, defer this into January, get a Class A, and then either present back to council what that Class A comes back at, or go out to tender and come back to council on what the tenders come back. I'm just trying to wrap my head around this 4 weeks that it states in there. Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, within the option there of option A, suggesting that if the project cost results in more than the 51.6, and the 51.6 including the 2 million approved, if approved today. If the Class A comes in more than that, we will be back. But in order to come back, the time delay is within the council cycle, as well as in the preparation of the documents to come back to council. So there is that consideration of timing to get us back to you. Where if approved today, the 90% cost estimate is completed, and it's within the budget of 51.6. We wouldn't need to come back, and therefore saving that time frame, that 4 weeks time frame. We could continue on the path of tendering. Obviously, if the tender goes out and it is over, we naturally will have to come back.
Councillor?
So I'm just trying to understand in terms of, is a council cycle the issue that we wouldn't be able to get this on the agenda and we'd be delaying it by 4 weeks? If once we get the Class A, once we have that document, we'd still need 4 weeks in order to get it onto a council agenda?
Mr. CO?
To you, Mr. Mayor, the basic difference is, as Ms. McDougall said, if we did the Class A and it was over, we'd be in the exact same timeline, more or less, as waiting to do the Class A. So either way, it's done at the end, let's say at the end of January. And in one scenario, at the end of January, we can proceed to tender. In the other scenario, where you hold back, we then put that on a council agenda, on a GC, if you will, and then go to council. So that wouldn't be ratified till the end of February. So provided we make that cycle, it's a minimum of 4 weeks, which you could be facing right now either way if the Class A is higher.
Okay, now I get it. We've also changed the council cycle as well, and that probably plays into it as well, where we're only meeting once a month. I got it. I also have some questions, but it's on item
It's on item
2, but obviously it's in reference, but I'll hold off until that comes up.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. Through you to Ms. McDougall. Ms. McDougall, in the report it talks about the various estimates. It says a Class B estimate, the accuracy is plus or minus 10%. Class A estimate, it's plus or minus 5%. So I guess in reading that, as much as we try and be accurate in our estimations, there's still the possibility that when we go out to tender, whether it be a Class B estimate or Class A estimate, it could come in over budget. Was that accurate?
Ms. McDougall?
Through Mr. Mayor, yes. We can't control the market.
And, you know, I think, and I appreciate that, because that's my feeling as well, is that we won't really know the true costs until we go out to tender. We can talk about budgets and estimates forever, but we won't really know the true costs until we go out to the marketplace and say, what is the actuals? Just like in the budget process. We often get the budgets and we say to staff, give me the actuals. I don't want to necessarily know the budget as much as I want to know the budget and the actuals. You know, recently we had the fire hall. The budget was $11 million for the fire hall. And yet when we went out to the marketplace, it came in significantly over. JCC had conversations that ended up at both this table as well as the town of Newmarket, and they settled on a cost of $13.5 million, a 25% increase. And that was voted unanimously last week. I think we're at a point now. Let's just move forward, go out to tender, go out to the marketplace, and let's figure out what the true cost to do this project is. We know it's going to be around $51 million. And then let's have that debate. If it's more than $51 million, or fortunately, maybe if it's less than, great. But instead of talking about budget, let's talk about the true cost.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. While I agree with what Councillor Thompson is saying, looking at the report, there was a couple questions I know asked offline, including Councillor Gallo, and it would have been nice to have seen what some of the items of value that were reduced in cost to save money, so we can kind of break that down in the bucket to kind of see where the cost savings came from. It's good to know it's not going to impact, but it would have been nice for us to see, you know, where, if costs do come back with this Class A, it gives us a better thing to debate as to maybe even further cuts if we need to do down the road. So it is a little bit preliminary. I'd also want to reference a little bit about item 2 in the sense that if we are going to tender, that perhaps maybe with the option of possibly getting some funding elsewhere, that there's some sort of price guarantee that we could hold within that tendering when we're going out for tender. So if we are delayed for whatever reason, we're not penalized for that. And I was hoping maybe through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. CEO, if you could maybe explain maybe that price guarantee, or is that finance?
Is that, I was going to say that's more of an item 2 question.
more of an item two?
Councillor, yeah, Councillor Gallo held off on that one, so I'll ask if you can hold off on that one until we get to item 2.
Okay.
Because we're speaking about funding on that one, which is for item 2.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fine.
Any other questions?
Not directly that. Everything else is kind of directed towards item 2 at this point.
Okay. Anyone else for the first time before? Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just wanted just some comments in general. I just wanted to relay my thanks to staff and the cultural and the partners that have provided input. This is a lot of work, and I think the detail that we received here tonight just enhanced all the previous meetings we've had, and I'm really thankful for the thought process around the theater room or the multipurpose theater room, and the thoughts around that, not narrowing it so much that we couldn't use it for many other things. So I just wanted to thank staff and the partners for inputting. This is a lot of work, and I do believe it's streamlining us for success. So I just wanted to just relay my thanks. I know there's lots of work to do. This is just the beginning, but it's a really thorough start. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Gallo, second item.
Thank you. I have one basically last question before I guess I express my views on this. If we approve this tonight and it goes to a Class A and it goes to tender and it is under the $51 million, will we see that tender come back for a final approval? Or will staff proceed with the project?
Mr. CEO?
Through Mr. Mayor, so that is entirely up to council. If council wishes us to come back at any point in time, then we would take that direction and come back to council. As it stands, if the Class A estimate was equal or under this estimate that we're asking council to approve tonight, we would proceed to tender. If the tender came in underneath that amount again, then and we have allocated budget, so in the normal course of business, we would be okay to go ahead with awarding that tender. The caveat in this situation is that we do have an application in for provincial funding, and so that may impact our ability to move forward at a given point in time. And so if there's a question about whether or not council wants to move ahead or wait, that would come back to council. But in the strictest terms, if the tender came in under the budget, we would normally have okay to proceed.
Councillor?
Thank you. And I guess that's where my hiccup is, because it's been, it's not news to anyone. My agreement with the project is, I don't want to get too much into item 2, but is very much contingent upon the financing of it. And in the report, it's clear that there's a very good opportunity to get a significant amount of money. And my comfort level to approve this, knowing full well that there's authority to move forward, if the tenders come back at under or equal to 51 million, it leaves the question of funding still out there. While I fully believe that should that funding come in, there'll be some type of discussion and it'll come back before this council, but it doesn't have that in the resolution. So my preference is that we proceed all the way to tender and see what the actual price is. and then have it come back to council. And maybe at that point, we'll have a better understanding of where we are with the $31 million that we're talking about, potential funding, and then make a decision. That's my preference. I can't support what's before us. I think, to me, that's the logical way to go about this. If that opportunity wasn't there, perhaps I'd be thinking differently. But it is, and I think we can't ignore it. And I don't feel comfortable proceeding without knowing whether that funding is there or not.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have to applaud staff for coming in within the 10% threshold in terms of the approximation. I know in another project I was deeply upset about the estimate coming back a third over budget and having to come back. And so for me, this is a surprise welcome that this latest update on the budget is within 10%. And I have every confidence that they'll be able to come within the next Class A estimate, which would be within the 5% threshold. For me, funding is not an issue because we already have the funding. We have the reserve, the Hydro Reserve Fund. In my mind, this project was critical to our downtown core and just a big boost to our community in terms of morale, business, culture, and every other aspect, that it was worth using all available resources that the town had available. So my approval for this project is irrespective or irregardless of any additional funding from the province or from the federal government. If they do chip in with an amount, I think that would just be a bonus for us. If we thought we were going to get a free project or a project that's 50% off, I mean, do we really want to go ahead with something only because it's cost effective as opposed to something that we're really passionate about? I mean, perhaps that's why some, previous council were not able to get some projects off the ground. I mean, if we really believe in a dream, we have to go for it, and within our resources, and I believe we do have the resources to our avail right now. That said, staff said that we may have a 4-week delay because of the council cycle and getting information together. Given that the next stage is to go to Class A pricing, and I'm fine with going that direction, but there's no need to come back to council. Just like as we give direction to council in any other project or any purchase or acquisition, I'm fine with giving staff the authorization. So that said, let's, if we can put in an amendment, I'd like to put in another clause that staff be authorized to further increase the budget and proceed to tendering the project, provided the final Class A estimate remains within a maximum of 5% increase. And that's where we were going anyway. So,
Is that an amendment?
Yes, it is.
Someone like to second that? Councillor Humphreys? Clerk, you got that? Councillor Kim, while we wait, did you want to speak to your amendment?
I spoke to it. I mean, in the end, there's still going to be, we need to have tendering going as expeditiously as possible, because we know that pricing increases as the months and seasons go on throughout the calendar year. So the earlier we get out to tender, the better, and the faster we'll get back the actual costs, as council has alluded to prior. So I think this is just a natural evolution of this discussion, and it seems proper to give staff the authorization to go ahead with council approval for the 5%.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Thompson, to the amendment.
To the amendment. So, just so I understand it, so the original motion on the floor is for option A, and option A within our report has two parts. The second part of option A said that if the project cost results in being more than 51.6 million, following the Class A cost estimate, staff would return to council for consideration, delaying the project by at least 4 weeks. So my understanding then is this amendment really speaks to that second part of the motion, which really just says, you know, continue going forward regardless of, you know, the Class A estimate, as long as it's within a 5% variance, go out to tender, figure out the amount. It doesn't necessarily address Councillor Gallo's point with regards to seeing that final cost and then having the debate, making the final decision. But this really is addressing that second clause within option A with regards to the estimate being over 51 million. If I can just get that clarified by Councillor Kim.
Councillor Kim? Saying, yep, that's correct.
And again, you know, I'm at a stage where I'd like to find the final cost, and then we can have a debate or decision, go from there. I'd like to see this go out to tender without any further delays, and then we could figure out the next steps.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Gallo?
I'll do my best to tread lightly, but through you to the CAO, if this was to pass, and you will have direction to go to tender and issue the tender, 51 million plus 5%, does that in any way negate our ability to get $31 million funding?
Mr. CAO?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is, Mr. Mayor, sorry, that is something we are working on in terms of the requirements of the program and the deadlines associated with the program. So on the face of it, it looks like the government would not necessarily make a decision until the summer, but we're trying to nail down exactly if there's any flexibility in that timeline, especially for a project like ours that is as advanced as it is.
Councillor?
Making a decision on the funding or making a decision on our process, and whether, my really question is, if we move this, does it affect our ability to get that funding?
Are you speaking specifically to this piece if we were to go out to tender?
Well, this speaks to, you
Yeah.
know, this is hand in hand with going out to tender, adding 5%. If it comes within that, we go to tender and we issue the tender and off they go and build.
Mr. CO?
Through Mr. Mayor, our understanding right now is that as long as we don't award, we don't affect our ability to apply for the funding. If we award tender, that could be a point that affects our ability to get the grant.
Councillor?
So maybe a clarification of what's before me. Is this suggesting that authorizing staff to award the tender, provided it's within the current budget plus 5%? If this passes, do you have authority to award the tender?
Mr. CO?
So through Mr. Mayor, I suppose in a formal sense, we would, in that council has allocated budget and it's within the budget and the tender comes in and it's within that. But from a practical perspective, with the grant money out there as an unknown, it's unlikely that we would proceed without coming back to council for some direction if we were to suggest moving ahead without confirmation of where we stand with the grant funding.
Which is exactly what I said. That if we proceed with this, and you know, we're getting somewhat wishy-washy because we're either formal or we're not formal. We either do this or we don't do this. Clearly that there's a possibility of getting significant funding, and from what I hear, we're giving authority for them to go out to tender and issue the tender. However, if funding, information regarding funding comes in, they're not going to, which is really contrary to this. So I don't see the value of this. If we have an opportunity to get funding, you know, we either do or we don't. We do this and we vote on this and we do it without any side discussions, or we don't. To me, this is negating the ability to get further funding. And I don't know what the purpose of that is, particularly if it's 4 weeks. I think it might be longer, maybe not, but the question mark is still there. And, you know, perhaps this should have come in January with a Class A, and some of these things maybe would have been ironed out. So I won't be in favor of this, particularly based on what I hear. It may affect, or we won't be going out and issuing the, or giving out the tender if the potential for funding is there. So there's more to this than what's on the screen.
Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of questions. So what we're asking here is to direct staff to go out and proceed with tendering the project. It doesn't say awarding the project. It says proceeding to tender. And we received the responses. Will this allow staff to be able to, in the next steps here, well, like, I would suggest maybe it's missing in this clause is that staff analyze, and before selection is made, that we look at what's happening with the grant process at that point. So you're not going to award, and like everyone knows that there's a grant process we're waiting to hear. And we're not going to say, oh, I'll reward and ignore the grant. So that's, I think we're going to item 2 almost. But if I look at it here, all we're saying is don't waste your time coming back to us, because we know if you're in with that 5% increase, don't bother. Like, don't waste staff's time anymore. Move forward, do what you need to do, and then now we move on to item 2 and talk about how we're going to approach that. I think it's just getting a little too close with the 2 items. That's how I see it. Through Mr. Mayor, I know, Mr. CEO, if I'm correct in that, it looks like here we're just asking you to move forward. Don't bother coming back, because, we're pretty much impressed with what you've come back to us at. I think that this is what this is saying.
Mr. CEO?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So, I guess the short answer is yes. You've got it right. This amendment, if I understand it, suggests that as long as the Class A comes within the higher amount now, we would proceed
Right.
to tender to nail down what the market says this is going to cost to build this project.
Good.
The funding piece is the next
The
report.
next item,
but-
so we should go there.
But we have to decide what direction you want to give us with respect to
Right.
absolutely releasing the funding. We don't need, we have to have funding in place before we can award. That has to be absolutely confirmed.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Just in terms of timelines, so through you to either Ms. McDougall or Mr. Nadarozny, if this motion and the subsequent main motion is approved, in terms of timelines, staff would then continue on with the Class A estimate. Staff would then go out and do the RFP. When do you think we would be in a position to award the tender in terms of timelines?
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, our team anticipates the award at this stage would be approximately the end of March,
Okay. So from what I'm hearing,
early April timeframe.
end of March, beginning of April. I
Yeah.
don't know. So from what I'm hearing is that moving forward with the estimate and tendering the project does not jeopardize our grant application. Is that correct? The only way to jeopardize that application is actually to award it. So the hope is that between now and the end of March, beginning of April, we have a more definitive answer on the application. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so what I hear you saying, Mr. CAO, is that staff will bring back the tender, the award, for council's discussion should we not have a favorable response that moving forward will jeopardize the grant. Is that fair?
Mr. CEO?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that is correct. The one caution that we would put on the table that could be a caution either way is we're not sure of the willingness of a bidder to hold a price for an extended period of time. So we may still be forced with a short timeline, but until we go to the market, we don't know that.
And I get
Councillor?
that, and council will be put on the spot to make a decision based on maybe a grant, maybe not a grant, whether or not moving forward jeopardized or not, whether the person will hold the price for a long period of time or not. But I think that I'm comfortable moving forward at this stage, knowing that between now and March, work is then on the staff and to you, Mr. Mayor, to confirm that answer with both our political colleagues at the federal and provincial level, as well as those that work in those ministries, and get us an answer on this grant application, whether or not. But there's no guarantee we're going to get it. You hear positive things. They say it checks all the boxes. They say that, it's a great project, but we're not sure or not. But at least my understanding from staff is that that question will be answered before this tender is awarded. One way or another. We may not like the answer, but it's going to be answered. Correct?
Through Mr. Mayor, if I could just be a little precise, we would, the question may not be answered by the end of the tender, but we would.
Well, the answer might be we didn't get an answer.
Right, that could be the answer. We don't know still. Right.
Councillor Gallo, to the amendment.
So if we approve what's before us and the main motion, just to be extremely clear, because I'm not, we're saying what I want to hear, and I believe we're going to do what I want to hear, but the words on the screen are not
So Councillor,
reflective.
I have a suggestion for you. If depending on Councillor Kim, who is before this amendment, whether it be friendly or maybe it would be an amendment to the amendment, maybe if you wanted to add in report back with that awarding of tender. Report.
Report back for the tender or the results of discussions regarding the funding. That's ultimately what I want to.
I think everyone's agreeable to that. If we want to put it in there as language, that's fine. If we can figure out the language, and if Councillor Kim's agreeable to that as a friendly amendment, I'm seeing nods yes. So if we can, Mr. Clerk, right after staff, just report back.
Perfect.
Is that
That's
good?
exactly what I was looking for.
Did you get that? That'd be another. It'd be that staff report back. That'd be a third one. That staff report back.
Actually, that could even be an amendment on the second item either way, but I don't know.
Do you want to say that again, Councillor Thompson?
Report back on the status of the funding application before the award
Of the tender. Is that good?
Yeah,
Councillor Gallo, you're good with
absolutely.
that?
That's exactly
Councillor
what
Kim, you're good with that as a friendly amendment? Councillor Humphreys? Okay. We'll just wait for it to come up on the screen.
Perfect.
Good? Councillor Kim?
So thank you, Mr. Mayor. So to make it doubly clear or triply clear so that we're all on the same wavelength here. So, like Councillor Gallo, I don't want to jeopardize any potential grant money that's going to be coming into this project. So in summary then, from what our CAO has told us, is that we will not jeopardize our potential grant money so long as the project is not awarded. We're expediting this, and the purpose of this amendment is so that we don't, we are expeditious in terms of finalizing what our costs are. The earlier in the year that we put this out to tender, the better pricing we get. We're not likely going to hear back from each of the different levels of government until likely midsummer. And so there's going to be a gap between when we're ready to award, which might be March, April, and when we hear back from the respective governments. And so we are hoping, we got nothing else, we don't have anything to lose so long as we don't award. So we're hoping that whoever we tender to, that, maybe before signing any dotted line, that they would, freeze their price, hopefully giving us or buying us an extra 3 months of time. Does that sound correct, Mr. CAO?
He's nodding his head. Yeah, that would be
Okay.
the idea.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
So, and just to bring some more clarity to this, I just say there's a lot of moving parts to the funding aspect of it. I've been sitting down as well as our CAO with the ministers. I've sat down with the Premier himself. We've had discussions in regards to this. Some would state that it's when you award the contract that it would maybe disqualify you. Some would say, no, it's when the shovels go on the ground. So there's a lot of different conversations going on. And I would say to all of you that that's my job and the CAOs to go out there and ensure that we get it done, and we bring it in front of council to be able to say that this is how we move forward with that funding piece, and we've got the answers from the province. And so that's my promise to all of you, that I'll have that, hopefully an answer from the province guaranteed at the time when we're ready to award the contract. So we'll know what we're doing. Call the vote on the amendment. That carries unanimously. Back to the main motion as amended. And Councillor Kim, you still have the floor if you want.
I'm good.
You're good? Anyone else? All right, I'll call the vote. That carries unanimously. Item number 2. Council, we did have an extra sheet for item number 2 before I ask someone to move and second the recommendation. Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel, can you just give council a little explanation on the extra sheet?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we did, reviewing the information in the report today, noticed in the figures that the remaining reserve balances, there was a couple of errors in them, and we have corrected them on the sheet provided. You'll notice any of the items that do have an asterisk beside it have been updated since the report was issued last week.
Thank you. Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Humphreys, second. Councillor Kim. Comments or questions on this one? Councillor Gilliland.
We're discussing prior, I think Councillor Galloway and Councillor Gim had both kind of suggested that there's some sort of freeze or price freeze or some sort of pricing hold. So when we are tendering, there's somewhat of an agreement, so we aren't penalized if there is a delay while we're waiting for this grant. Is this something that we can ensure within our tendering we can include as a requirement or an ask?
Mr. CO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we can certainly put those kinds of questions in or require those kind of responses in the tender, but of course there's nothing guaranteeing. At the end of the day, the market will decide to what extent they're willing to hold their pricing. We'll certainly ask for something that would allow us to proceed with the grant process and so on, but given the activity in the market, we're being told that it's unlikely that they would hold for a long term. Like, you wouldn't get them to hold pricing for 6 months. 6 months, that's unlikely.
Councillor?
Is there a typical timeline that's industry standard?
Mr. CO.
Through Mr. Mayor, it really depends on how busy the market is. I don't think I would want to say there's a typical timeline, but I mean, we'll put a minimum in there that would allow for processing and for getting the wheels in motion to actually award, because sometimes it'll take a month or something to actually make the award, but beyond that, it's really, we're at the mercy of the market.
Councillor?
Is there a risk involved? Should we choose to, if there is only a 120-day price, what's the risk involved by holding off based on the answers that we're waiting for with this funding?
Mr. CO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what we'd attempt to do is put that possibility out there and ask them to tell us what the extra cost would be, if they'd be willing to extend the price for an extended period of time, and if so, what would the additional cost be, if any, and then leave it to them to respond.
Councillor?
Can you think about that? Thanks.
Any other comments or questions on this one? Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. Could the value-added items, We did get a late email to some of the questions that were asked, and I don't know if the architect is able to answer. It's basically the relatively large change between the curtain wall, and just to get a sense of the change that we're implementing from the new email. I don't know if everyone got it or not. It speaks to, I think, wood timber to a typical aluminum, but I just wanted clarification around that.
Ms. McDougall, or did you?
I can attempt through
Did
Mr.
you want to
Mayor,
invite?
but the consultants are here. I mean, it'd probably be easier coming from them. Be more of a
Sure, if
technical
council's
answer.
fine with that, yeah. I think that's why we invited them to be here, so yeah, sure. We definitely want to make sure we get all the information we need.
Hello, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so the change proposed was to revert to a conventional aluminum framed curtain wall assembly, where the mullion behind the window, behind the glazing element, is aluminum and not timber.
Councilor?
So through you, the original one was timber.
That's correct. For the bridge and library components.
And the rationale for choosing that initially?
So that was part of the overall aesthetic, the warmth that was part of the renderings presented. I believe it was in May by Aaron Hendershot. Added to that overall aesthetic, the warmth of the timber in those renderings, playing off of the wood slat ceiling that's carried through the library and the bridge.
So it's purely aesthetical. It's not from a functioning perspective. It's the lesser expensive version will function properly.
It will function just as well.
And you mentioned the slats. Could you just speak to the difference between? I think we're using a different material.
Yes. So the product, I believe, was incorrectly specified as a more flat assembly effect. It's probably more like a tongue and groove type ceiling, but that was the incorrect specification. We're carrying a wood slat ceiling, and that was always shown in our renderings as those wood elements repeating every so often. We've been coordinating that as part of our acoustic design intent throughout the cultural center, and that same material is being carried through for the library and the bridge.
So nothing has changed in terms of the design. It was
The
just
aesthetic
it
is
was a
remaining.
specification.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that's good.
Councilor?
The other questions are regarding the some of the numbers. So I don't know if I'm happy to pause if anyone has any other questions to the architect, or I can continue with my.
Just keep going.
Okay. On page 13 of 13, that last chart, library square breakdown by key category, specifically the value engineered savings. I had asked for a breakdown of those numbers, and we got it kind of late, around 5 o'clock. There's an email. The one that I'd like just some clarification with is the last one, the library building enhancements. So the breakdown, I know the public doesn't have it, but I'll go through it. Curtain wall timber frame, so there's some savings there, about $350,000. And then the second one is the library HVAC replacement, already captured in R&R list, it says. So I guess my question is, can it be in both lists? If it's a value added, which means we're removing it, but we're also funding it through a capital item that we currently have in our 10-year capital, and if the answer is yes, then how come all the other ones aren't also on that list? Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly with regards to the library HVAC, first and foremost, it was on and is on the town's R&R list. However, because of its complexity with the design requirement of the HVAC roof replacement, moving it up, incorporating it into the design of those two spaces, it's a significant technical aspect, and therefore through the design work, the Turner & Townsend, our cost consultant, had incorporated it in their cost estimate. So when we went through the value engineering steps, it was identified that they had in fact captured it in their estimate, while we already have it in the town's components. So that large piece was an easy removal because we knew we already have it captured in the rest of our budget estimates.
Counselor?
So I guess the second part is how come the other items that are also part of our capital and are also, I think, part of the value engineered savings, how come they're not on that list?
Ms. McDougall?
If I may, I'll try to explain. From a complexity perspective, that particular piece requires a significant amount of redesign work because it's being lifted to the rooftop, not only being removed, but being lifted to the rooftop. So it required a significant amount of specification and design work. The other pieces, the painting of the walls, the improvements of the wood flooring, the LED light improvements. There's a number of other items that were on the capital repair and replacement that are not as technical in nature, requiring integration to the technical specifications that we're seeing at this stage of the project evolution. Going down the road, as it becomes the development of the tender package, they will all be put in and be expected upon the general contractor to bid on as one whole package. So at this point, we are still working with the consultant firm and the cost consultant to identify and ensure we are integrating the cost packages that we have through the town, through the R&R work, through the FF&E work that we're assessing, as well as the actual technical detailed design specifications. So in the end, in the next round of costing, they'll all be there. It's just in this case, we identified it as a duplication. I want to assure you, nothing is missed, if that's what you're looking for.
No, I'm just trying to understand the difference between the two. If we capture one, why didn't we capture the others? Just on that, I'm still not following the bouncing ball, and I apologize. How is it that we can have it in both columns, both on the current estimated cost, $835,000, so that's an expense to which we already have capital dollars for, we've planned for that. So we have it in the value added savings also column, and we're removing that from the overall budget amongst the other items to save $3.28 million. I don't get the math.
Ms. McDougall?
I'll attempt this as well through Mr. Mayor. If you're looking at on the attachment 1, going down to the line where it says library building enhancements, the total of $6 million. So it's on attachment 1 of the second report, the funding strategy report, page 13.
So under the current estimated cost for library building enhancements.
Construction costs for the library building enhancements, the column where it speaks to the $6,073,000, that number includes that HVAC replacement number. But also in that same column, current estimate, other previously approved capital works of $835, just further down, library HVAC unit replacement is also in that column.
Okay, so that makes sense. The $6 million has it, so
Yes,
so
we're taking it out. So that
it's already
not
in the
captured
$6 million.
twice.
Then we're taking it. Got it. That explains that.
Counselor?
I think we have the answer to the. Actually, no, we don't, and I don't know if you have this offhand. But do we know what the balance, unless it's on here, from the proceeds from sale of municipal lands? Is it one of these? The balance is $6.74 million.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so depending on which option we have here, so if we do receive the grant funding, the balance will be $7.74 million. If we do not receive the grant funding, we are looking at $6.74, just based on how we're funding the entire project.
Okay, so
Counselor?
so the summary of basically the vast majority of the cost of the project, if we are unsuccessful in receiving the grant, is moved to the hydro reserve, and we'd be taking 24.3 million from that account.
Good timing, Counselor.
Thank you.
You're at 5 minutes. Any other comments or questions? Counselor Humphreys.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to remind or maybe share some history from my perspective on Library Square. And I think Councillor Thompson, Councillor Gallo, in 2010, we all sat together and we started talking about what are we going to do with the old fire hall or senior center, and what are we going to do with the old library. And they were beyond repair and spending money to, invest in fixing roofs and so on and so forth. And we started talking about Library Square, or we used to call it then La Piazza, because I was coming back from Italy saying that the mayor in the small towns would go to the square and they would do proclamations, and it would be the gathering point where people would come out and listen to the mayor's speech, whatever the occasion is. Councillor Gallo, you understand the piazzas in Italy, right? And what the whole vision is to have a gathering place for the town to go. And that gathering place is surrounded by lovely stores, boutiques, not nearly skating arenas, but they would have your espresso bars, your, all kinds of lovely restaurants, places where people can gather with their entire families. There is no, adults only or kids. It's a gathering place for everybody, a destination where people would go Saturday mornings. And I could see us having the farmers market, and then some other events. I mean, so closely, the vicinity is so incredible. The vision is so amazing. And this is 2010, but even before then, it was talked about. I believe then, Mr. Downey said we have 12 years of previous history on public planning sessions that we've had on this particular area. So I believe there's like more than 25 years worth of what are we going to do with this space. And we all want the revitalization of the downtown core. You can see what the Armory has already done. It's a spectacular space. I've had so many people just over the moon over it. People are there during the weekends for lunch. It's become such a place to go and enjoy and look out at Town Park. So really, we've talked about revitalizing downtown for so long, and this is, Councillor Gallo, we're finally doing it. Like, this is the part where it's actually getting done. And, it's tough. It's a lot of money. But we have that fund there for something spectacular and special. And this is it. I really believe if you have that vision, this is more than worth it. We live here, this is our town. And I hope I'm probably going way off topic on what we're talking about here.
Well, I think we all like the history, but actually,
shut up,
Councillor,
Sandra.
you're not speaking to the actual item, which is funding, but I think we've let you kind of
Gone
stray a
too
little
far?
bit. Yes.
So I'll go back and I'll just say that I appreciate the funding model. I appreciate how we're going to move forward on this. And something that Councillor Kim mentioned earlier, for me, if we're not successful in the grant process, and I hope we are. I know we've had some spectacular people that wrote that grant, and it's perfection. So if we don't get it, it'll be a disappointment, but it wasn't for not writing it beautifully and having the right people do what they need to do. But if it doesn't come to fruition, I do believe that the savings that the town has done, that this is the right place for it to go to. So I'm very happy and excited, and I haven't changed my perspective since 2010. So I'm really excited, and I hope that we can move forward on this funding model, moving forward, and go from there. Thank you. And sorry that I went off course. I don't normally do that, right? right?
There's a lot of laughs in the crowd there, Councillor.
I know, they know me.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? Oh, Councillor Gallo.
Seeing-
I'll allow
seeing
you to
as you-
stray
as
a
you
little bit.
allowed
I'll let
some
you
off
stray
the
a little bit
course,
as well. Go
I'm-
ahead.
I'm going to really quickly, for those who know me, and while it may not sound this way, I'm a huge proponent of the humanities and the arts and everything that this project stands for. I have been since the cultural center, since the fantastic things that the new things that the library is doing. They're really, phenomenal. So I want it to be very clear. I have a degree in art history. It's a huge part of my life. I just want to get it right, and I want to do everything I possibly can to get it right and do right for the town. So I'm going to challenge, and I'm going to take a different viewpoint, and hopefully it's respectable. But I hope you can understand that the end game is to do what's best for the town.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? I'm going to stray a little bit too. Well, I guess I'm the chair because I can stray. So, Councillor Gallo, first of all, absolutely, 100%. And we respect each and everyone's opinion around this table, regardless if it's the same viewpoint or not. And we appreciate the passion that you bring to the table, as I do with each and every one of you. I think it's needed. I think it's what this town expects of each and every one of us sitting at this table. And I think that's what this project needs, is for each of us to challenge each step of the way to make sure that what we are doing is right. And I think that what we are doing is right. To me, this is an exciting time. This is another step. It's been a long time coming. I mean, geez, 25, 30 years worth of reports, consultations, public consultations, meeting with organizations. I think that if we look through all the paperwork, we could probably fill this center area right here with paperwork of how much work staff and town and the residents have done on this specific area, and how we've ultimately all have said that something needs to be done. And as I said last term, when we started to make some big progress on this, is that I'm proud. I'm proud of this council, and I'm proud of this council too, that we're taking this next step. It's going to be even that much more exciting once we award the tender and we make that move. To me, that's going to be very exciting. As I said before, my promise is that I can't guarantee that the province is going to give us that funding. But what I can guarantee to the residents of this community and to this council is that I'm going to work my damn hardest to ensure that the province understands the importance of this project to this municipality, to this region. And I can tell you, they're excited by it. The minister's excited about it. The premier's excited about it. I read you the statement from the premier himself saying that this is an exciting project moving forward. So, everything points to, that this is going to happen. And I think that we're all excited. And like I said, I'm proud of each and every one of us of taking this step and making sure that we progress to a point that this town will succeed and be at the forefront, for many years to come. So that's my stray for the night. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. There's not a whole lot to add to everybody. Has talked about the project itself, but just in general, downtown revitalization has been a key objective of every term of council, going as far back as you want. And individually for each councillor and mayor over the last number of years, I'm sure it's been a key objective, and part of their election platform has been the downtown revitalization. And we've all had different thoughts and ideas about how to go about it. I believe the majority, if not all, members of council feel that this could very well be a significant catalyst to helping the revitalization of downtown, but is not just the only step. We continue to look and explore other avenues and opportunities in which to continue to build up our downtown and create a gathering place, as we've talked about over many years. On a personal note, it was a little more than 4 years ago that myself and then Councillor Maracas put forward a motion to establish the cultural precinct, and that kind of kick-started this current voyage through this whole process. And we've had many twists and turns along the ways, and different stopping points, and certainly kudos go out to a lot of the staff and everybody around the table for the effort and the work that's gone into getting us to this point. And I share everybody's enthusiasm about the potential going forward, because I know that this is one part of a long-term strategy. And, you know, should we move forward and should we be successful in the funding, that we will continue to look to link what is happening at the Armory, which is amazing by all accounts up to this point, and what we plan to do with downtown, and it'll continue to further to, like a domino effect, build and grow. And maybe someday in the future, people from Newmark will be talking about, hey, I wish we had something like Library Square down in our town. But anyways, that's another conversation for another day. I'm grateful that we all share that same vision and effort to try and enhance the town in any way we can. And I hope that this continues to move forward and we continue to build.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say something that is not much different from what my fellow councillors have already iterated, but you know, it's been, you know, a long 4-year journey, and I just want to say how much I appreciate all the other councillors around the table who've contributed and participated in this journey. And I do recall Councillor Thompson's and Mayor Marax's motion 4 years ago, and that kickstarted this version. And you know, in particular, you know, I know that through the 4-year journey, there's often adversarial climates that erupt, but in the end, I believe that iron sharpens iron, and you know, whether it be Councillor Gilliland or Councillor Humphreys or Councillor Gallo, regardless of some of the comments made around the table, it's you know, we are, you know, I really respect all the things that you know, Councillor Gallo and Thompson, you know, you guys all bring to the table, because you help to sharpen our own opinions and in fact change our opinions, whether it be right then and there on the spot or in between meetings. And so just want to thank everyone, and even though we have disagreements, we do have a common goal and we want to do this right. And so I just want to show my appreciation to everyone on council and CAO and staff. Thank you.
Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm going to echo a little bit of the same thing going around the council table. And I think it's really impressive that the province knows about this. Yeah, I think it's very impressive that the province knows about this project, and I really do think it says a lot that they've taken notice and have said comments, and the fact that we're on the top of the radar for this grant really shows that, you know, we are moving in a really good direction. And I do sense and feel there's a lot of excitement within the residents of Aurora, and I also really feel this does add a lot of economic opportunity to our downtown. And the project alone just shows that we are willing to invest in our town, and we're proud of our town, and this is just a step in that direction, and we're investing for the people of today. And I really think it's important that all the residents have something that we can all enjoy through arts and culture and revitalization. And this project really does definitely put Aurora on the map, and really put us in a positive direction of revitalizing our downtown core, which is really what I think this term and this council really wants to focus on as far as our downtown core. And moving forward with this, it's a historic moment, and I think that we should all be really proud of the outcome and where we started, although I wasn't here for the start of it. But I'm really grateful that I'm here at this point and we can see it through, and I am really glad we're going to get the opportunity to see that Class A estimate and have some further refining, because there is obviously some further refining to do, but we have to come to a point where we feel that we're willing to spend X amount to get to where we need to be, and kind of work from there. And this is just finalizing that step and kind of making all that hard work pay off and move forward to the completion of this amazing project. And if we get this grant, this will be the cherry on top. So, Mr. Mayor, you get in there. Do your thing.
See what you started, Councillor Humphreys?
So anyway, I just want to say thanks to staff and the CEO and all the councillors around the table and the mayor for all their input and hard work and getting us here today. And I look forward to that Class A estimate in January and seeing where we move forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? I will call the vote. That carries unanimously. Council, confirming bylaw. Someone like to move that? Councillor Humphreys, second. Councillor Thompson. Call the vote. That carries. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Gallo, Councillor Kim, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.